Hi folks. It's the first time I'm doing a video like this, so bear with me if it's not as polished as other people's videos you watched. But the reason I'm doing this video is I could not find a good head-to-head comparison of these drop boxes or pitch boxes that are available out there. I play in a variety. I play bass, and I play in a variety of situations where, for a variety of band leaders, whether it be for a church or for other things, where you learn a song and learn a song in a particular fingerings and learn it a particular way, and then the band leader wants to change the key sort of on the fly, and it's not as easy as throwing a capo on, like a guitar player can do, or just switching some chords around. When you learn a fairly funky or tricky song in a particular fingering, it's not easy to drop that down half step or a whole step or couple steps, and so I found myself in a place where I really needed to simplify my life and to not have to relearn songs all the time, is to just get one of these pitch boxes, so that when the band leader says, hey, we want to play this song, but we're going to play it a step low or whatever, I can quickly dial that in and just play it. So, but the problem is I couldn't find a good review online that did a good head-to-head comparison of either of these boxes I'm looking at, and particularly for bass and particularly for just simple down tuning or up tuning for that matter. So I went ahead and got these, and I'm going to make my own video here and show you how these sound, and point out what are the things that I've noticed and what will be ultimately part of my decision criterion as I decide which one to keep. But you guys can make your own judgment. So I hope some of you find this video useful. I'm comparing the Electro-Harmonix Pitchfork, the Digitech drop box or drop or whatever it is, and then this third one here is this inexpensive one you find on Amazon. It's a Mooger pitch box, and so I'll go through all of these and just play some progressions, a handful of songs that I've found myself where I've struggled with these, and let you hear them. I should probably say that this is not a video where you're going to hear a lot of amazing bass playing and anything like that. I'm a pretty ordinary bass player, and it's actually going to get kind of repetitive because I'm just going to play some scales and a handful of songs just so that you guys can hear the tonal difference, because that's ultimately what I'm trying to get across is how do these things sound, not show off what an amazing bass player I am, which is actually not the case. So enough of my yapping here. What I'll do is I'll go through each of these and detune them step by step, call out some things that I've noticed as I play through a few selections, and then we'll wrap up and have a quick summary. All right, so this is the natural tone of the bass that you're going to hear today. This is a Stingray playing through a Gallion-Kruger. I like to use a little compression, so I have my compressor box sitting there, and then I've got my tuner here so that we can just kind of see how things stay in tune and how the tuner responds to what these things are doing. So this is the natural song. One song we play a lot is that gives you just a flavor for how the bass sounds naturally. So first one we'll do is we'll do this mooger and -1 down, so this would bring it down to E flat. So you can kind of hear a bit of a bathtubiness to it, but it still tries to maintain the character of the bass, but it's definitely has sort of a resonance to it, but not bad at all. As we'll go down to step -2, which I think is a whole step. Yeah, now we're down at D. Jumps a little around on that. Start to hear some warble. All right, we'll bring it down to -3. Now. So it goes from 1, 2 to -3 to -5. It's sort of, let's see, skips C and just goes to B. You can see, so if you wanted to use your 4-string as a 5-string B bass, that anyone would ever want to go below B, but this one then has a -7 setting. I don't even know if my tuner is going to be able to pronounced that I would consider it pretty much unusable. All right. So that's the pitch box, the Mooger. Let's try the drop box. So I'll get back to what it sounds like normally. All right. So I'll just do one. The Journey because I have a lot of band leaders. You know, Journey was recorded in, I think it was recorded in E or E flat, I can't remember now, but I have a lot of band leaders who can't sing as high as Mr. Perry, so you know, I often find myself playing it as low as C, you know, and again, once you learn the fingerings in E, you know, playing in C is a little tricky. You could play it on a 5-string with a capo, but that's just a pain. So here's down 2. So this brings the E to a D. Tracking. It's tracking pretty good. So we'll bring it down -3. So that brings us down to C sharp. Start to hear the warble start to come in again, like the Mooger. See, it's a warble there. All right, so we'll bring it down to 4. C, and this is the one I get asked to play Journey in C all the times. You can hear it's kind of has some tracking difficulties. A little bit of a blip. Some oddities there. It's not outrageous, but it's better than the Mooger, but not quite great. bring it down to 5, which gets you the B bass. Quite a bit of warble, a little bit of kind of weird tracking thunks and things here and there that I just call them little oddities. Probably better than the Mooger, but not quite as stable as I'd want it to be. And of course, you know, you can do the oct plus dry on this. You can do that on the Mooger as well. When you have the obviously the dry mixed with the octave, generally sounds pretty good, because the dry on all of them, the dry, you know, sort of masks any of the artifacts. But you can see that this thing has very difficult time tracking a octave low E. So it kind of hops in and out of the mix. But as long as you're on the upper strings, it's okay. And I can show the same thing here on the Mooger. I have to switch modes to, yeah, I think it's this one. No, it's not that one. There we go. It's not quite convincing, but it's okay. Anyway, that isn't the point. I digress. That was a bit of a distraction. Okay, finally the Pitchfork. All right, I know you guys have bared with me here for a while, but let's try this one out. So again, let's refresh yourself, the natural tone. All right, so that's the natural tone of the bass. Pitchfork. Oops, that's in the stereo chorus mode. So that's E flat. Bad. Probably the distinction, the distinctive sound of the Harmonix is it's got kind of this overdrive tone to it, and it's not terribly articulate with the you know, with the, I'd say, the crispiness or the punchiness of the bass, but kind of has a soft attack. But the tone is a bit of a dirty tone, which in a lot of cases sounds actually really good, but in some cases it certainly would be, the attack is so soft, some people might not like it. All right, so that was minor second. So this one's labeled a little differently. It's minor second and then major second. So this brings it down to a D bass. brought it down to the D. Let's go to the next one, which is minor third. Brings us down to C, which again is where I asked to get asked to play Journey all the time, is in C. Again, I'm not going to amaze anyone with my bass skills, particularly when I'm trying to pay attention to the camera and the buttons and the knobs. All right, so that was getting all the way down to C, and I think this next one is B. So if you wanted to use your 4-string as a 5-string. Listen carefully as I just do the scale again. So the Pitchfork, you know, it just doesn't have any of the warbly problems that the other two have. It's pretty darn solid. I mean, the tuner doesn't have a whole lot of problem tracking it, whereas with the other two, the tuner has a little bit of problem tracking it. But even all the way down to B, solid. So this video has already gone on a long time, and I'm sure many of you have already left. So let me jump to my conclusions. So I think in conclusion, if you're just looking to go half step up, half step down, or even as an octaver where you're trying to get a lower fundamental while you're playing higher strings, I think all of these work just fine, and arguably the Mooger at only $70 on Amazon is probably a great deal. But the Mooger, and to a less extent the Dropbox, as you start to pitch down further and further, you start to get a lot more modulation effects that can be pretty distracting. In my opinion, the Mooger is pretty useless beyond I'd say -2, which I think on that thing is a whole step, and -3, which I think in their math is a whole plus a half. It starts to get pretty useless because of the modulation effects. The Dropbox, I think, is better than the Mooger, but still I wouldn't call it fantastic. I would call it reasonably good, but probably better than the Mooger. But considering the Dropbox is probably 3 times as much as the Mooger, I have a hard time justifying the value. Which leads me to the Pitchfork. The Pitchfork I think is pretty darn rock solid as you go down all the way down to a B, and then of course it has all the octave settings, and you can go lower, and you can do your own blend, so you can adjust the blend. And of course you can go up or down on it. The mooger you can go up and down. The drop you can only go down. And you don't really have a blend at all, so you can't really play, you know, harmonized thirds and fifths on the drop, whereas on the Harmonix you can do harmonies. I don't really care about that. I think the thing about the Pitchfork is that you know, you do lose some of the attack on the notes, although it's strange because you don't lose it all. You just it's either the latency fooling with my head. They all have latency. They all have significant latency. That's for sure. You're not going to get away from that. But the Pitchfork also has sort of this overdrivey tone to it that in a lot of cases I don't mind at all. But in some cases you do sort of lose some articulation. So I think in conclusion, where I'm going to land on this is I think I'm going to stick with the Pitchfork because it's the modulation and the tracking of it all the way down to B is head and shoulders above the drop in the mooger. I wish it had better articulation of the sound and the notes of the natural bass. I think the drop in the mooger maintain the natural tone a little bit better, as long as you're not going too far off of a half or a whole step down. But once you get past a half or a whole step down, you know, which is, you know, 3 or 4 on the drop box, or on the mooger it's labeled as, you know, -2 or -3, the modulation effects start to get annoying, and you start to sound out of tune, and your bandmates might start to complain that something's amiss. So in conclusion, on my almost 30-minute video here, I'm walking home with or I guess in this case, keeping the Pitchfork and returning the other two. If you guys have different opinions or whatever, I guess leave them in the comments. Don't mock my bass playing. I never professed to be a great bass player. I'm just trying to do a job. And especially in this context, it's not about amazing anyone with my skills. It's about listening to these, and I try to do the best I can to give a variety of different tones for the particular situation I'm in, which is all I want to do is to be able to change keys on songs without having to relearn the song and relearn the fingering. Hope you enjoyed this video, and take care.